In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the exact workflow I use when making content. It's the same workflow that I've used over the last 5 years that has helped me grow my Instagram account to over 150,000 followers and make almost 1,000 pieces of content, which sounds insane to say. So step one is obviously ideation. So when it comes to ideation, I know that a lot of us, whether or not we like to admit it, scroll a lot. And as social media can be a good source of inspiration when it comes to social media content, obviously, it's very easy to get trapped in a bubble. And we end up, without realizing it, making the same content that we're consuming, which over time leads us to either be unsatisfied with what we're making, or frankly, just like not making what we could be making and should be making. And so because of this, I kind of have a few different ways that I like to ideate for my content outside of social media. The first one, which I've talked about a million times, is music. Music plays a massive role in all of the content I make. I think that if you are someone who uses music in your videos, which most people on social media do, being really familiar with music and finding inspiration through music, whether it's through music that you currently listen to or purposely finding new music, can really help you find inspiration in ways that you otherwise would not have found it, or in music that you otherwise would not have listened to or been able to think of if you didn't listen to different music. Some other ways are through movies, through art, whether that's through some crazy indie film that no one's ever seen, or just big blockbuster movies, or through art. Like I have a few art books laying around the house, and sometimes I just like to go through them and find inspiration in that way, whether that's for design style, whether it's for colors, or even for actual framing and composition of shots. Another bonus one here that I actually didn't write down, but I just thought of while making this video, is music videos. As someone who loves doing intermediate VFX or just cool effects in my videos, music videos are a great place to find inspiration because it's typically where you see videographers and cinematographers and DPs and all this stuff at their most creative and really pushing the limits of their creativity. So you can always typically find some really, really cool inspiration from music videos. And to wrap up the ideation section, go for a walk, unplug, leave your phone at home, journal. I've been starting to journal more as well. Just general self-reflection and just taking a step back from the internet and being bored is often the best way to think of ideas for videos. We're so constantly stimulated by so many things that we never actually give our brain a chance to breathe and just kind of wander. And I have found for me that my best ideas typically come when I allow my brain to wander. So go touch some grass. To document your ideas, what I use is either Notion, or if I'm on a walk, or if I'm out and about, I'm not Canadian. I am from the Midwest though, is voice memos. So Notion and voice memos. And then for voice memos, I typically just use ChatGPT or something to transcribe it and clean it up. And then from there, I just put the voice memo transcription into Notion. Basically everything runs through Notion. Any notes app will work though. If you have the notes app on your iPhone, then use that. Just somewhere that you can store everything. And so when it comes time to write for video or plan a video, it's all in one place. All right, step 2 of my workflow is technical research. What the hell does that mean? Basically, once I have the idea or I have my list of ideas and I choose one, it's time for me to actually start flushing this idea out and deciding how I want to bring it to life. For me, this typically comes in a few different ways. I'm constantly looking for new tools to add to my tool belt. Basically meaning when it comes to editing or filming or writing, I'm always looking for ways to do things differently so that in the future I have more options to choose from. A lot of times for me, this comes in the form of editing. So VFX or effects in my video. If you don't do VFX and effects, don't run away, it's fine. This applies to literally any piece of this process. But basically, this step is just me trying to figure out how I'm going to bring this idea to life and what I want the main focus or the main driving force behind this idea to be. A lot of the times this does happen during the ideation process as well. I just posted a video recently on my Instagram. I'll put it here so you guys can see it. And I had the idea of the cool red effect, the chord effect, simultaneously with the idea of wanting to talk about disconnecting from our phones. So sometimes these ideas like this come at the same time and they are coming to life in tandem. But what's just kind of important here with this step and why I include this step is because with every piece of content and every single thing that we make, we should be constantly trying to get better and learn new things. And so by being intentional with having this technical research step, we are intentional with actually actively trying to get better and learn new things. So we're not just complacent and stuck in the same bubble we always operate in. I love to use the website Cosmos for this. It's basically like Pinterest, but for creatives. So I use it a lot for finding design ideas and VFX ideas and like After Effects in composition and colors. It's a super cool tool. It's not sponsored, obviously, but I use it all the time. They have a lot of cool static images that I can help me bring them into motion and bring them into something that I can use for my videos. So I highly recommend checking that out. The last thing here is like, don't get stuck in this phase. Obviously, we want to constantly get better and improve, but don't try and reinvent the wheel every time you make an Instagram video or YouTube video. Step 3 is the writing and planning phase. This is essentially the phase where I finalize my script, if there is a script, and storyboard my entire video. I personally storyboard everything when it comes to my more narrative or storytelling cinematic videos. The reason for this is two-pronged. One, when it comes to actually filming in the next step, it makes that 10 times easier because you don't have to question in the moment what you need to capture and what you don't need to capture. And then two, when it comes to the actual editing phase, it makes editing 100 times easier because you know exactly where everything is going. My edit is already done in my head when I bring the clips into Premiere Pro. If I can give any advice in this phase is to have a very clear plan going into the filming and editing process. That way you don't forget things or you don't know where things go or you waste time trying to figure out how you want to structure the video. This is also where you can plan your actual VFX or effects or transitions or cool things that you learned or were learning in the technical research step. This is where you can actually lay these out and decide where in the video they're going to be placed and what clips they will be applied to and so on. A bonus tip here, this is also the phase where like I will plan my outfit or the colors or the fonts or anything like super technical that I have in my mind that it weren't really had a place in the ideation phase and whatnot, I'll plan them here. So like, for example, I storyboarded a video yesterday for a video that's coming up and it's kind of Wes Anderson-esque with like a voiceover and the style and the composition. So I wanted to do like coveralls and a red beanie. And so I made sure I put this in the planning phase on my storyboard and whatnot. So I knew when it came time to film, I didn't like forget that, or I at least knew it was coming up so I could plan other things around it. As well as planning the gear you're going to need and planning the location. Step 4, obviously, is the actual filming phase, finally. So I like to keep the time between step 1, ideation, and step 4 as narrow as possible. I understand that not everybody has the freedom to like ideate and plan a video on Tuesday and then shoot on Wednesday. But for me personally, the shorter the time between ideation and execution, the better. I can make an entire video about this, to be honest, but really what matters and what you need to understand is that inspiration is like the wind. It comes and it goes. So you might be feeling super inspired about an idea or a topic on Tuesday and write all about it and then be like, oh, I'm gonna shoot this on Friday. But when Friday comes along, you totally lose the flame, behind the idea. And so the idea may not come to life in the way that it originally could have. So shortening time between ideation and step 4, filming, the shorter the time, the better. All there really is to say on this step is to shoot when you feel confident, when you feel good, especially if you're talking to the camera. I know it's not easy to do at first if you're not used to it. However, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, but there will be days regardless that you're just not feeling confident. So maybe don't shoot and film on those days. Maybe use days where you're feeling good to actually go out and shoot. Drink some caffeine, get some coffee in you, wear a good outfit, right? Like feeling good on camera comes off in the actual edit and makes an edit or makes the actual final video much, much better if you're feeling good in front of the camera. Also, don't half-ass the filming process. There have been times, I'm not gonna lie, where like I am say an hour into filming and there's one more shot and in my brain I'm like, I don't really need this shot because it requires me to move a bunch of equipment around, but do it. Get the shot because it's way more of a pain in the butt to have to go back and refilm or try and figure out how to fix an edit when you're missing a shot versus just getting the shot in the moment. All right, step 5, editing. The first thing that I do after I film is plug my SD card into my computer and dump all the video files onto my computer. My file organization looks like this. I organize everything by month, and then inside of each month, I separate the different categories. So for example, like you can see video, export, sound effects, projects, and inside of these folders are the specific individual videos and the files for each of them. I've been doing it this way for like 4 years now, and for me, it's the best way to do it because it keeps all of my recent projects at hand. And when it comes time to move to the next month, I can easily just drag the entire month's folder onto an external hard drive for storage, as well as if I want to reference an old video from a specific time in the past, it's very easy for me to go back, find the specific month and year, and get that file. When it comes to the actual editing process, what it looks like for me 99% of the time is a rough cut. So basically me aligning the clips in the order that they will be in the final video, syncing audio with that if audio was recorded separately. Then I export the timeline, color grade it in DaVinci, bring it back into Premiere Pro. Once my clips are back into Premiere Pro, I'll add the different effects, adjustment layers, VFX, and After Effects if it applies to the video. Next, I will add any text or titles or subtitles that weren't added during the VFX effects phase. And then the last step here is the sound effects. The reason I do sound effects last is because I typically will add sound effects to any sort of motion or animation or anything happening in the video. So rather than say do sound effects third and then do subtitles, and then I'd have to do sound effects again if I animate any of those subtitles, I just do sound effects last because typically that means that the visual portion of the video is done being edited. And then last, I just export the video and airdrop it to my phone or my iPad to see what it's actually going to look like to someone that's watching it on their device. The reason why I do the last step of airdropping it to my phone is because when we're editing on a big screen, sometimes things can be a bit construed as far as sizing and positioning goes, and we don't realize it. So when you export it and watch it on a device like an iPhone that the viewer is going to be watching it on, we can actually see what it's going to look like. So if the subtitles are too small, it's going to be obvious. If the positioning of some things are weird, it's going to be obvious. So it allows us to double check our work to make sure that it's like, yes, great, optimized for iPhone or Android viewing. And that's pretty much it. This is what has worked for me for the last few years. My process is always changing in small ways, but this core has pretty much remained the same throughout this time. A note for you is not to just copy this exact workflow because I do it. If this exact workflow works for you, then please do. Please copy it and be more effective as a creator. However, the more important thing is to pick and choose things that maybe you might think is going to work for you or does work for you, and understand that the overall principle of this is to just be a more effective, consistent creator. But also remember, don't overplan your creativity into oblivion. It's very easy to get over systematized as a creative. I know it can be super helpful, obviously, to have systems in place, but at the same time, if you are too systematized, you kind of lose any sort of experimentation and creativity. So don't overplan every single thing you do to a point where there's zero room for you to be creative. And lastly, just have fun doing this. At the end of the day, like, even though a lot of us do this for a job, or we want to do it for a job, or whatever our motivations might be, you got to have fun doing it, because if you're not having fun doing it, then what is the point? Why work so hard to do it if you're not having fun doing it? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next one. All right, peace.